Welcome everyone. Today I have a new build for Diablo 4 for the Spiritborn with Crushing Hand. Now this is a very speedy build, and due to popular requests, I'll be looking into some of the best Spiritborn Crushing Hand speed farming build for us for Season 6. So I have been looking at a lot of Spiritborn Crushing Hand builds, and this is by far the most updated, the fastest, with extreme mobility, and also it deals a lot of damage. So here what we're seeing is this is a pit 101. You can see the monsters are melting instantly, but the biggest factor for this Spiritborn is it infinitely dashes with Crushing Hand and it has extreme mobility. You're having so much speed as you dashes towards enemies and everything melts in seconds. Of course, the best part about this build is that having Sobo as your follower means that you can see everything on the map, and wherever you see a pack of elites or monsters, you dash them, they disappear within seconds, and you dash the next one. You're basically using them as the leapfrog mechanics as you dash through the map, and you have tons of mobility. And there you go, we're up to the boss, and that's the boss. You don't have to wait for any monsters or anything to explode them, you just two-shot the boss, and this is the build. So now briefly going through the concept of a Spiritborn, you can see that this Spiritborn uses both Sword and also the Hunter as mobility. Together with the ability to use Rushing Claw and also Ravager, you are dashing towards enemies all the time. And your Crushing Hand has so much attack speed stacked up, it pretty much infinitely stacks and one-shots people. So one of the highlights of this build, of course, is we're using the Banish slot, which allows us to gain overpower hits, and this then translates into a lot of orange damages, which is pretty fun to see, and it is very powerful. Now the build itself is very mobile, as you can see, and having two utility spells with Sword and also the Hunter means that you can leap around whenever there's no monsters around you, like over here. And of course, the build have no troubles against single target or bosses like this. So that was the 70-second clear for pit 101, and the build does do a lot of high damage. And when I was looking at the comments, a lot of Chinese players have used similar build to clear pit 110 within 70 seconds. And one of the best part about this build is that you are not heavily required on higher stats greater FX gears. You just need one greater FX gears, and this works most of the time because you're overdoing a lot of damage. And as you can see over here, everything is melting in seconds. Now before we jump over to the builder's guide, a big thank you and also credits to Ja菲猫JustinFan on the Chinese Bilibili for sharing his build and also constantly updating this build. I have had a look at a lot of other builds, so this is a Crushing Hand variation build with 1 minute 30 seconds to clear pit 101. So there are a lot of varieties and also variations, but the one we are learning is potentially the fastest Crushing Hand with 70 seconds for pit 100 plus. And we'll look at the difference between the skill choices like not taking Scourge and also what are the passive choices that is different that allows this build to be super fast. So coming over to the builder's guide. As you guys can see over here, we are using one mythical unique item, the Shroud of Fourth Death. The +1 to all passive is incredible, together with getting more maximum life, even resource generation is not bad for this build, together with all stats. The centerpiece of the build is definitely coming from Banish Lord's Talisman because of the overpower hits and also the Rod of Cataleptic. Now one of the ways this build is gaining a lot of resources is coming from the Ring of Midnight Sun. We're using this particular ring simply because we don't need to pump more damage using a legendary ring over here, and this ring means you have more consistent damage and also some cooldown reductions so you can travel even faster. Now in terms of the rest of the gears, we are stacking Resolve. We're stacking maximum Resolve on the helmet and also on the pins. The gloves, we're going with Moonrise, more attack speed, and in terms of the ring, we go with Redirect Force, of course, because we are stacking block chances, which translates into more critical damage. The Duelist Boots allows us to have more ferocity stacks for more damage and also, again, more attack speed. Finally, for the helmet, we're gaining additional Fortify coming from this helmet, and this does allow us to do more fortified damage, or allows us to do more overpower damage once you're fortified. Now I mentioned earlier, this build has a minimum gear requirement. If you can get maximum life on your gears, that is good enough. Other times, if you can get attack speed or Crushing Hand, that is not bad as well, but those can be very expensive. Most of the time, the content creator tested, saying that you don't even have to have maximum life if you can't find it. And if you have maximum life, you're doing way higher damage than needed in speed clearing any of the content in pit 100 all the way up to 110. So if you want the speed farming build, this is actually a very cheap setup that can work for most of the Spiritborn. Now in terms of the Spirit Health, we're going with Jagger and also Gorilla for the Unstoppable and also the maximum resolve stacks for a little more damage. As for the Ruins, we're getting the Tam and also Curve, which allows us to invoke the Vortex casting automatically, and this allows you to group enemies and also knock them down. We are getting the Earthen Bulwark because we gain a lot of high damage coming from the barriers. Now as for socketing off the rest of the gems, we're going with Dexterity for a little more damage. You can go with barrier stacking as well if you want to go with barrier generation. Over here we have additional socketing for additional armor because we don't have as much armor, but most of the time you are not really short of armor or resistance because everything melts in seconds. Now briefly going through the skill tree of this particular build. One of the bigger highlights the content creator highlighted, or he mentioned, is that he is going with 3 points into Swift, together with 1 additional points coming from the passive +1 on the chest. This allows your mobility skills to have lower cooldowns as you travel further, and this is one of the centerpiece or the reason why he was able to, I guess, travel so much faster with lower mobility cooldown. Now he also mentioned that he did not go with Scourge. Instead of going with Scourge, he's having both Sword and also the Hunter as mobility, and together he's using Crushing Claw, which allows him to have more charges, to use Ferocity to gain more charges, and also allows him to dash towards enemies with mobility. Notice that those mobility skills will be lower cooldowns because of the passives. Now briefly going through the Paragon of choices. So the glyph we have over here is going to be Spirit for the amplification of critical damage multiplier. The next glyph, he's using the Headhunter, which allows him to gain additional damage against elites. And also over here, we have Menagerist. This allows him to gain maximum resource through the amplification of the magical knots. And over here, we have Colossal. This is a must-have, a stable in the Spiritborn, because this allows you to stack maximum resolve for maximum damage. Finally, we have over here Wildfire. I haven't seen this one many times, but Wildfire seems to be doing additional fire damage, and dealing direct damages allow you to lower your cooldowns. So this is definitely tailored towards mobility, utility, and also even further cooldown reduction. Now coming over to the replay and also briefly going through the skill rotations and also combo of the build. You are dashing towards enemies with multiple ways. As you cast Ravager, as you cast Rushing Claw, you can dash towards enemies. On other times, you can use both Sword and also the Hunter to travel through across maps, the cliffs, and also rooms and also mazes. So the build has a variety of mobility as you can see over here. One of the bigger highlights of the build is how quickly you can lower your cooldowns. And this means that, as you can see, even your corner skill passive lowers your cooldowns. So everything's built to lower your cooldowns so you can cast your skills more often and dashing towards enemies. You want to always dash to the next pack of monsters, and also having the Mercenary Sobble allows you to see where you want to go and where are the monsters. So the build is very straightforward, and I'm sure if you guys are looking for a fast farming Spiritborn build that can push for 300 Paragon levels, this is definitely up there. We have had a look at some of the Sorceress builds, some of the Rogue build yesterday, and today this is by far the fastest Spiritborn farming build to push for higher pit faster clear for more experience. Now before I finish, some of you may be wondering why we want to push so fast for pit clear and why is 70 seconds or even under 70 seconds preferable with pit level 100. If you come over to this Excel of experience per second, if you can clear the pit in 70 seconds, you can see the amount of experience you earn per second dramatically increase. And if you haven't seen this particular Excel, I'll have the links available for you guys together with a video to teach you how to use this Excel, because this pretty much calculates what is the best way to get the highest experience in the game. And here we're estimating people will take 100 seconds to clear pit 100. But if you take in 70 seconds to clear pit, all of a sudden you're gaining almost 40% more experience than most other players. And this calculator will tell you, yes, it is the best way to do pit 100 after trying out this particular build, which is insanely fast.